Who was the first Indian ICS? Satyendranath Tagore. Who was the first Indian Nobel Prize winner? Rabindranath Tagore. Who were the first Indian graduates of Calcutta University? Answer: Bankim Chandra Chattopadhyay and Jodhunath De. Who was the first Indian dancer performed outside India? Uday Shankar. Who was the first Indian engineer? Nilmoni Mitro. Who was the first Indian Fellow of Royal Artists Society? Abanindranath Tagore. Who was the first Indian cricket player? Ranjit Singh. Who was the first Indian Doctorate of Science of London? Sir Jagadish Chandra Bose. Who was the first Indian president? Dr. Rajendra Prasad. Who was the first Indian Prime Minister? Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru. Who was the first Indian cartoonist? Gaganendranath Tagore. Who was the first Marshal of Indian Air Force? Arjun Singh. Who was the first Indian space traveler? Rakesh Sharma. Who was the first Indian knowing many languages? Harinath De. Who was the first Indian film director? Dadabhai Phalke. Who was the first Indian crossing English Channel? Mihir Sen. Who was the first Indian pilot? Indranil Roy. Who was the first world famous Indian magician? P.C. Sarkar. Who was the first Indian lady chief minister? Sucheta Kripalini. Who was the first Indian woman prime minister? Mrs. Indira Gandhi. Who was the first lady president of Indian National Congress? Sarojini Naidu. Who was the first president of Indian National Congress? W.C. Banerjee. Who was the first lady speaker? Sushila Naira. Who was the first Indian lady space traveler? Kalpana Chawla. Who was the first lady pilot? Durba Banerjee. Who was the first lady English Channel winner? Arati Shaha. Who was the first lady judge of High Court? Anna Chandi. Who was the first lady Field Marshal General? Miss J. A. Ram. Who was the first Indian lady doctor? Kadambini Ganguly. Who was the first Indian woman to climb Mount Everest twice? Santosh Yadav.